So welcome everyone. This is the live webinar on parent dialogues. And we have Dr. Timothy Dukes here, whose book is launching in July, the Present Parent Handbook. And the guest speaker together with Dr. Tim today is Andrea Burnett. And she's a lifestyle publicist, a PR, and she's been working together with Dr. Tim together on this book. And we're really happy, really glad to have everybody on the line. So I'm going to give the floor to you both to have the conversation, to have the dialogue about this book and about present parenting in general.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. I had an interesting experience to share with you about my own children that I thought was a great way to dive into this conversation. My kids are at that age where they are always on, even in school, they're on electronics. They are always reading, they're doing homework, they're very active with their friends. And there's a lot of conversation going on with parents around parents being present for their children. You talk about that a lot in the book, but you also talk about how we are the mirrors. Is that the way you say it? We are the mirrors for our children. Like our children look to us to model good behavior.
Yeah, there's two separate things. There's modeling and mirroring.
Mirroring.
So you're speaking about mirroring. When they look into your eyes, they actually see some facet of who they are.
Okay.
Some facet of their own reflection.
Okay, so this is more about modeling, I think. I think as parents, we try and model the best behavior we can for our children. But we also don't really talk that much about how we want our children to model good behavior with others. So how might we, my children are 10. This is a time when we want to say to them, the way we're behaving with you, the way we're present with you, how might you reflect that back in your communicating with your friends and others? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. That's like the long reach of the mother, or the long reach of the father. Can we reach into our children's lives and instruct them in a way as to how to be in the world when we're not present? Physically present.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what happens on a day-to-day basis, they internalize us.
Mm-hmm.
So as one of your daughters, she's speaking to you and you see some quirky behavior that you think, oh God, you can't do that out in public.
Mm-hmm.
Your teachers would never allow for that.
Mm-hmm.
A number of things are happening. One is she's testing out her behavior to see how it plays because you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
So she can test out, and maybe she's showing you something that she picked up at school. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think probably the best we can do, because certainly we can't be there every moment to protect them. When they're infants, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But as they continue to develop and grow, there's some proximity that they need and they can tolerate away from the parent, away from the parental function. But that doesn't mean we're not with them. We're with them through that internalization, through that mirroring. They look and they see themselves in 1,000 different ways in your reflection. So that when they test that behavior out, they have some sense of how it's going to play out in the world. The second part is their social group. They're very tempering, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may walk into a room feeling like a butterfly, but once these other children are done with them, they slither out as a caterpillar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. Let's dial it back and talk a little bit more about your definition of presence, because you have a couple of different ways that you speak about presence in the introduction of the book. So tell me a little bit more about where the idea of the book came from and what you see as the two different definitions of presence that you talk about in the intro?
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about that. I was talking to a boy that I mentor. He's 19, and he's way too young to be in the world emotionally. He's in college. He's struggling, missing one parent. So I was reflecting on where this started, and it started in two places. When our son was an infant, I banked the fire at night. It was cold. It was winter in New England, because if he woke up, I would be the one that would get up with him. These days, we took turns.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever it was my night, I would get up. I mean, I banked the fire and planned, have everything set up to give him a bottle, and I almost couldn't wait till he would wake up. And sometimes my wife Sally, when she would go to bed, she said, "Don't you wake him up," right? And sometimes he's just so cute. And I wasn't able to sleep, so I just wanted to have company. I'm not going to say I did that, but it could have happened. So anyway, I would take him down by the fire, bank it up. And the things he would do when he was an infant, when he was younger, they were so adorable. I just made notes of them. I wrote stories, just vignettes about my observation. And like you said earlier, that some of these passages make you cry.
Yeah.
All of it makes me cry.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is more painful. It also came out of not feeling the degree of parenting that I needed as a child. I found that when I was holding my son, there would be times when there would almost be like another tortured little being right next to him. Mm-hmm. The memory of myself as a child. Mm. So the man I was talking to today that I mentioned, he has an adopted son. It's through his second wife's daughter's child. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much raised him. But this guy grew up in the desert with no parenting. And he would remark that as much as he loves this boy, some days he just can't tolerate being with him. Mm-hmm. And I had a similar experience because I was committed to be with my son. Sally was working and I was with him. It was really difficult to pay attention. Mm-hmm. So two forms of presence. One is like a gift, mm-hmm. that you literally like a present, mm-hmm. that you unwrap. The other requires a capacity to manage very disturbing emotions and thoughts and still remain connected and engaged with your child. Mm-hmm. And there's no right way to be. They both happen to all of us pretty much without our having much say over it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's easy. A lot of times it's really difficult to stay present.
Mm-hmm. Right. So my question earlier was, how do I maintain that connection with my kids and still function as a working adult? Because sometimes I work from home, as you know, and it's really a fine line when you're at home with the kids there and trying to get things done. It's just hard to be present for either of those things fully. So how can I work on that, I guess?
I don't know.
That doesn't work.
I don't know. You'll be really fortunate when you find someone who can answer that question. I was in psychology for 25 years, and I have to admit that women or men would come in and talk about how difficult it is to be with your infant or your young children and get some work done. Mm-hmm. And I would say, I said the appropriate things because I was a good person. But in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, come on, you can take a shower and have a baby. You certainly can finish your cup of tea. You can't take a shower, you can't finish your cup of tea. It's really difficult. And anybody that tells you it should be easy, it's not. Because I've tried every which way. But you have to balance these two worlds, right? The idea throughout the lifetime of being a parent, you don't want one side of your life, your business life, your professional life, your job, to defeat your responsibilities as a parent. So you're talking about a kind of pendulum swing. And in my opinion, there's no perfect or right way to do that. I mean, there's tactics. Like for me, I would get up an hour early to make sure that I was showered, fed, coffeeed, ready to go for my day, so that it's scripted. And then I would be ready to be the primary parent. If I come back from work and I'm taking over to be the primary and shift out of the secondary, right? Who's ever on is primary. The other one goes on idle to do other things. If you're fortunate enough to have a partner that you can dual parent with, then you trade off. There's no reason, for example, that one parent can't do certain things. I mean, there's a bias against men, I think, that we find ways of, increasing our tolerance to the baby's cry because we know that our partner is going to hear it first, right? And I think everyone does that too. Maybe if I just stay with this email a little while longer, he'll go and pick up the baby.
Right.
So
that happens all the time.
I see it as a dialogue. I think it's a dialogue with your child. Sometimes you have to say to him, you just got to wait a minute. It just can't be in two places. I have to do this. Sometimes you take a defeat. You can't get the thing done you wanted to get done. And the basis of the book goes back to the moment of being present, not in some idealized perfect way, but a willingness to have that dialogue with your child or your children and with yourself that allows you to come up with your way of doing it. And then you experiment. If one of my teachers said about, as a therapist, if what you're doing isn't working, do anything else. But don't hammer them with the same thing. So here's some of the tactics. Go to your child rather than using your voice. If I want my son to come for dinner at any age, I learned early on I can't call to him. He doesn't like to be called to because my voice will raise. It's deep. It will shatter his world. He'll already be defensive because I've disrupted him. Whereas if I walk up to his room, pace myself, go sit down. So what are you up to? How's it going? I'm thinking dinner now or in like 2 hours. Oh, Dad, I'm starving. Oh, let's have it now then. It's almost ready. I would have to get him to school in 20 minutes. I would go up to him and say something like, I think you should get ready for school right now. We got to go. And he goes, no, I can't. Well, how much time do you need? I need a half an hour. No, how about 10 minutes? No, how about 20? All right, 20 it is. So why would I go up there and tell him we got to go right now? Out the door now. I already know what's going to happen. So how do you find your unique ways of being playful and whimsical and curious and firm? Sometimes you have to be firm. But the idea is not to break that dialogue, not to break that bubble that it's really like an external womb that you hold your child in, whether you're male or female. They're held inside of that consciousness, inside of your heart, inside of your attention. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It never is, just good enough. Just don't drop them. If you can help it. Don't drop them physically. For some reason they don't like it. And we learn not to drop them emotionally and psychologically and relationally. But there's no magic formula for that. It's a whole lot of tolerance for the discovery is important.